Next up to talk about motorcycle preparation and especially how it pertains to this new sport bike class will be John Sherrard from Accelerated Technologies.
We're not mandating a suspension change to these motorcycles. In years past, Colin and I have looked at it. We've done pre-season testing. We've ridden the bikes and we've come away and had a meeting and tried to decide what we needed to implement to keep the riders safe, to have good close racing where nobody's fallen down. In years past, we've evaluated the forks, we've looked inside them, we've looked at the spring rates, and we have to realize these bikes are built on a very cost-conscious basis. They are a low-cost motorcycle. They're not going to have high-end components in them anywhere. And when we take these motorcycles racing, we need to make drastic improvements to them for our safety. So we've looked inside the forks. A damper rod fork is a very cost-effective fork. There's basically a hole in the side of the fork internally, and that is your damping. The oil, under compression, the oil flows through the one hole. On rebound, it flows through the other hole. So the only way of tailoring that fork to different speeds and different track conditions is to change the viscosity of the oil. When we raise the viscosity of the oil to like a 10 or a 15 weight, 20 weight even, the fork becomes thermally unstable. As it heats up, the viscosity goes down and the fork may work okay in the morning and it'll turn into a basketball at lunch when the oil thins out. So there's very little consistency. If we could develop a system that worked well with a light, like a 2.5 or a 5 weight oil, then that oil remains pretty thermally stable. We heat it up, it doesn't lose much viscosity. A thick oil loses viscosity quickly. So the damping rod inside a lot of these economically targeted bikes forks does not lend itself well to competition. It doesn't allow us to go from a smooth track like Mossport to a bumpier track like just about any other one that we ride. No, that's not fair to Calabogie or to Tremblant, but I'm joking. But we can't tailor, we can't change the fork. As we go faster, we need to increase the damping rate of the fork. A lot of these tracks will have high-frequency bumps coming into braking zones. That fork needs some support. We need some compression support, but it's got to be fast and rebound. So again, how do we do that with a damper rod fork? Our hands are pretty tied. So we looked at options where we could put a cartridge into the fork and make it affordable for you guys, keep it safe. So I've got some options here from K-Tech, and we built this bike for Colin and for Yamaha using the Öhlins option cartridge. So it gives us the ability to run a lightweight oil that will stay thermally stable. It's got compression on one leg, rebound on the other leg, and adjustable preload. A damper rod fork has no facility really for preload unless you're changing caps. So I'll just show you quickly the difference in the technology. That's a damper rod fork. Pretty archaic. And again, you can see the small hole for rebound direction, the larger hole for compression direction. The spring sits on top of that, and then we're limited. The cap goes on top. If we wanted to try adding some preload to it, we're taking the cap off and stuffing washers or coins like we used to do back in the day when we didn't know any better, to raise the front of the bike up or to support our weight, or we're changing springs. This option from Öhlins, this option from K-Tech have 15 and 18 millimeters of adjustability, so huge window. I'll be stocking springs for the different riders in the room that get into these cartridges. Sometimes we'll change fork spring rates from track to track depending on how fast we're going. This is the cartridge that we're replacing that damper rod with. It's got a compression piston and a rebound piston inside on a conventional cartridge. These are IDS systems, which is a different system again, which is independent damping. There's compression in one leg and rebound in the other. So they're a beautiful cartridge. We negotiated some special pricing with both Öhlins and K-Tech for the bikes in the series. So we're trying to keep the cost on these cartridges are under $1,000. Yeah, $995, right around $1,000. Normally, they're typically around $1,400 plus tax and plus installation. And then we're charging $200 to do the install, which is again a good price. We're usually $250 to $300, depending on the nature of the cartridge. The tubes are coming apart. We have to put the tubes in the lathe and machine out the OEM hydraulic bottom system in them to install the cartridge. So it's about a 3-hour job for us. So we think that that's acceptable. We bent over our suppliers as best we could to get it as affordable as we can for you guys. So there's no excuses not to have this level of safety and capability in the motorcycles.
You do not have to buy things from John. John is a supplier we're used to working with. He knows our tracks. He knows our series. He's participated in a lot of our projects. I am concerned in a broad sense that the business of suspension doesn't seem to be ready for the amount of people we're driving their way, particularly given that Moto America, in theory, has a bunch of people driving in the exact same direction. So what I would say is if you make your suspension decision in April, you may be racing with stock suspension. And I hope that isn't the case, but it's a little frustrating and disappointing. And I know some of you are going to start shopping and you may encounter that same thing. So, face up that these are things you probably need to do. And if you're trying to do them at Shannonville, then it's going to be a scramble to get anything capable. And of course you can ride the bike with the stock suspension, but I'd be very, very surprised that anyone who does well ever rides the bike with the stock suspension.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. As a tester, Colin ordered some cartridges for this particular bike from Motovan, the Canadian Olin's distributor, and he was better part of a couple of months, I think, to get it. I ordered directly from Olin's USA, and they usually ship the same week. So K-Tech stuff I'm seeing about 4 days. Olin stuff, if it's in stock, is typically about a week and a half. And then, we try to be cognizant of your need and when you need the bike and the parts back by to turn it around for you. So we hate to tell you need to buy product from us or from someone to go racing, but in the event of a shock absorber, they build these things on a very low cost, as I mentioned before. They use a steel body on a lot of these cases, or in some of them is a cast aluminum body and a steel piston. And I did bring a stock shock here, solid steel, out of a CBR 500, and it has 5 preload options, and that is it. When the shock gets hot, coefficient of thermal expansion tells us that the body is going to expand away from the piston, and the oil is going to go around the piston assembly, so you're going to lose damping control. When we get into a quality high-end shock, the piston and the body materials are always matched. So the shock is going to operate the same at ambient as it will at 100, 120 degrees Celsius. And the damping is going to stay consistent. So the performance is going to stay consistent. The stock shock will not handle the racetrack. The reason it works on the street, the temperature of the shock is consistent. Where do we shift RPM on the street? 5,000, 6,000 RPM. On the track, every shift, 12, 13, 14,000 RPM. The heat coming back into that shock body is insane. So it's something that a good quality aftermarket shock will deal with. The other issue, if you're contemplating running with a stock shock, is the spring rate and length. The length of the spring is always picked for the fitment of the shock, and it's a bastard. It's an odd length. It's unlike anything else. So when you start to try and customize that shock for your weight and riding style, you're making spacers and you're getting into a strange spring rates and lengths. When you get into anyone's aftermarket shock, be it a Soki, a Kayaba, a Showa, an Elka, a Penske, Fox, any of these shock suppliers, new or old, use the exact same formula for spring rate and size and diameter. So once you get into that relationship, any suspension supplier in the country will have springs for it. So it's an added benefit. I actually brought an Elka Shock here. This is for a CBR 300. I have these in stock and for the Ninja. So that is an option that's available to you guys as well for about half the price of the K-Tech. This is about a $500 shock, And the K-Tech here is about a $950 shock. It's got compression, rebound, adjustable ride height, which is pretty rare on a bike like this to have a shock of that capability, piggyback reservoir. So we do have some great options. And Öhlins is an option as well, but call me if you're interested and I can tell you which shock might best suit your needs and your budget. Again, I'm not the sole supplier of the series. You're welcome to get your stuff anywhere. We like to think we can really help you in terms of technical support, delivery, meeting your expectations, and being there for you when you do have a question. But please include that in your plans. I think that's it. Thank you guys for attending. Colin, thanks for having me, and please give us a call or ask me if you have any questions. Thank you. Thanks, Frank.